The world ocean is shrouded in mystery. It's there that you can come across a toothy monster, a sea vampire, and even creatures which are unknown to science. This is wildlife, and in this episode I'll show you a real mermaid, a rare chimera that lives in the ocean, fish crawling onto land and shooting with water, a goblin shark with terrifying jaws, a huge leviathan, and a sea dinosaur that even megalodon was afraid of. Sit back and relax as we get started. Humpback anglerfish. Predatory fish have been famous for their unusual appearance, which scares people. But if the shark or something like it seems scary to you, then you simply haven't seen any deeper water inhabitants. One such, by the way, is the humpback anglerfish, which lives at depths of up to 14,760 feet. By the mere appearance of the fish, you can understand that it's not happy with everything that's happening and wants to eat someone, or at least a bite. But how does it find this prey? Here, nature has taken everything into account. The humpback anglerfish uses a built-in flashlight as bait. Well, in more scientific terms, it uses very light photophores on the end of the elysium on its head. This outwardly rod-like thing allows the fish to lure in all sorts of crustaceans and other small critters. But even if the prey surpasses this fish in size, it's not a problem. Because of excellent stretching stomach, this fish can easily deal with large prey. To make you understand, in the body of one humpback anglerfish, which is about 2.5 inches long, once a 9.5-inch fish was found. What else can be said about this creature is that the females are significantly larger than the males. While the former reach a length of 7 inches, for the average male, 1 inch would be the limit. Long-nosed chimera. For some creatures, Mother Nature created a small outgrowth to help in the hunt. While for others, it overdid it and made them look ridiculous. As you understand, I'm talking about this nosy fish called a chimera. You can find this odd creature at depths of up to 8,530 feet. Given this elongated snout, the chimera reaches about 5 feet in length. Despite its size, it's quite maneuverable and always sticks its nose where it doesn't belong. However, its carelessness hides thoughtfulness and preparedness because right before the first dorsal fin, it has a venomous spine. As soon as the chimera senses danger, it pulls it out. In the usual state, the spine is hidden. These creatures eat literally anything they come across. All kinds of sea urchins, mollusks, crabs, and other similar critters are part of their diet. Surprisingly, it turns out that these fish are a real delicacy. They're actually caught and served to the table. And in some places, their fat, which is rich in vitamin A, is even used as medicine or lubricant. Vampire from hell. That's more of a name from a rock band than an animal, don't you think? However, judging by the way it looks, I take it back. It's really a vampire, and it's really hellish. At least that mouth seems to symbolize sucking the fish on its victim and draining all its blood and more. In fact, everything is much more simple and humane. The vampire from hell, or the vampire squid, feeds not on blood, but on the most common remains of dead plankton. This mollusk opens its mouth as wide as possible and grabs a lot of water at once. Then it squeezes the water out through the holes between the tips of its tentacles and enjoys the remains of aquatic life lingering in its body. And then you ask the question, why is this creature using nature's gift of its mouth for such a small purpose? Why not suck all the fish into itself and become the true king of the seas? The answer is very simple. The vampire squid is adapted to its habitat. Because it lives quite deep, about half a mile underwater, there is very little prey around it, which means getting life energy is not easy. Collecting remains, however, is a cushy job. You can safely drift around and get nutrients, which are also very much at the bottom. However, despite this style of feeding, the vampire squid has well-developed jaw beaks, very similar to the jaws of predatory squids and cuttlefish. Nevertheless, the animal that feeds exclusively on detritus doesn't need such powerful and sharp jaws. Next up are representatives of the giant isopod genus. If common isopods reach a length of about 2 inches, then for these animals, 20 inches will be the norm. These animals live at a depth of 600 feet or more, and they feed on dead whales, fish, or squid. Of course, given their size, it's not always easy for them to find prey, but this doesn't upset the giant isopods one bit. They can go without food for 5 years, and they also grab every opportunity for someone or something to snack on. There have been many cases in history of these crustaceans attacking large fish trapped by sailors, and they're understandable because giant isopods are real gluttons. They'll eat as long as the supply is not enough for a long time. There have been cases where giant isopods were so full that they couldn't move around. Hit the like button if you're some sort of a giant isopod during the holidays or weekends. Megamouth shark. Do you know any sharks that feed on plankton? That's right, the whale shark. Yes, there's also the basking shark, but did you know there's a third one? The megamouth shark. I think even a first-grade pupil could distinguish it from the others. After all, the main difference lies in the name of these sharks. The large head of the shark ends with a mouth of incredible size which opens very wide. Despite its huge jaws, the sharks of the species live at a depth of up to 5,000 feet and poorly studied by people. Nevertheless, it's known that the maximum recorded length of the megamouth shark is about 20 feet. Pretty good, right? If I were in its place, I'd eat everything I'd meet on the way. But the megamouth shark has a different opinion. Like a whale, it opens its mouth and sucks in large volume of water, and pressing its tongue against the palate squeezes the water out through the closely spaced gill slits. In this way, the underwater inhabitant filters its prey and swallows it whole. Ninjin. This creature also reminded me of a shark with arms. So judge for yourself. Who does it resemble more, a man or this underwater predator? According to eyewitnesses, the creature even has 5 fingers on its hands. Some attribute Ninjin to the species of mermaids, others say that it's a fish with blurred facial features, but no one gives the exact information. This humanoid creature lives within the boundaries of Antarctica, and if we believe the rumors, it's strictly forbidden to talk about it to all witnesses. Nevertheless, versions have leaked onto the internet, one of which I'll tell you about in a moment. People say that several crew members on deck observed something that looked like a foreign submarine. As they got closer, however, it became clear that this assumption was wrong and that it was not something man-made. It was something alive, but the creature quickly disappeared under the water. Maybe it was some kind of night hunter, since it was only encountered during darkness. Maybe that's why you can barely see it. I don't know. Do you think this Ninjin story is real? Or is it nothing more than the fiction of mystic lovers? Share your thoughts in the comments below the video. Mermaid in the Greenland Sea. If Ninjin seems too obscure for you, what about mermaids? If we believe the submariners who were in the Greenland Sea, they saw with their own eyes a strange creature with webbed limbs, which may well be a mermaid. Fortunately for us, these are not empty words. These guys tried to confirm them with a video made by them personally. In it, during a dive, one of the crew members, a bearded man wearing glasses, is busy filming when cracks appear in the glass behind him, which on closer inspection turns out to be a pale hand with webbing between the fingers. This immediately catches the submariner's eyes, and he turns around to look at the creature up close, but it's already receded and can barely be seen. It's unlikely that one of the divers went underwater and decided to make fun of a friend, right? Doesn't look like an editing either, but then what could it have been? Personally, I tend to the mystical explanation of the find. Any way you slice it, the depth of about half a mile that people were at makes me dismiss the version that it was a prank. No one can dive that deep. What do you think? Let's move on to another, no less mystical inhabitant of the world ocean. We've all heard of megalodon. Some even believe it still exists. But did you know about the red megalodon? Come to think of it, it was much more dangerous than its common congener. Keep watching as I'll tell you about all its features. Megalodon. These huge predators used to be the most dangerous animals on the entire globe. There are many theories and legends surrounding them, telling the most terrible horrors. According to one of them, Megalodon was the largest predator on the entire planet. There wasn't a single animal bigger than it, and therefore, in the time of its existence, it was always at the very top of the food chain. To some extent, this is true. The size of the monster was indeed incredible. The largest representatives of the species could reach 50 to 65 feet in length and weigh up to 100,000 pounds or more. Thus, Megalodon was among the largest aquatic predators in the history of our planet. At the same time, Megalodons are divided into the largest, gray ones, and Megalodons of medium size, slightly smaller than the gray ones, the red ones. For comparison, purple marks the whale shark and green marks the great white shark. And it seems like the gray ones should be the most dangerous because they're the biggest, meaning they could handle all enemies with ease, or were they not? According to one theory, as large as the common gray megalodons were, the red ones were far more dangerous. First, they were faster and more maneuverable, allowing them to easily evade and inflict their own bites. Second, because of their speed, they often snatched prey from the gray megalodons. The latter simply couldn't keep up with them. At the same time, these red sharks had the same huge teeth and powerful jaws. What you see now is the tooth of a megalodon. It's about 8 inches long, and these are the fangs that these huge fish had all over their mouths. Another reason why red megalodons were more dangerous is that they often gathered in groups and often attacked with the entire underwater pack. Because of this, they were often very nomadic, as they ran out of food quite quickly when they hunted together. Could there be anything more dangerous than megalodon? Of course. Although megalodons were the real menace of their time, there have been other monsters on Earth throughout its history that could compete with that very creepy shark. Let's take a look at them and other creepy prehistoric monsters. First on this list is the crocodile. Scientists have found that the crocodiles we know have almost the smallest size of any crocodile in existence. Imagine an ordinary crocodile and the same crocodile, only several times larger. Such was Sarcosuchus, an ancient crocodile of enormous size. It was about 40 feet long and weighed about 17,600 pounds. Given the force with which today's crocodiles can clench their mouths, it's not difficult to imagine how much stronger Sarcosuchus clenched it. By the way, the mouth of this monster alone had a span of 5 to 6.5 feet, which is comparable to the height of an adult human. This huge vise was studded with hundreds of sharp teeth which, once closed, never let go of their victim. Because of this, even dinosaurs were easily eaten by Sarcosuchus. Quetzalcoatlus. Quetzalcoatlus is an ancient bird, similar to a pterodactyl. Its danger is that, oddly enough, it could fly. If humans lived at the time of the dinosaurs, this bird would have been a far greater threat to them than megalodon, at least because it's unlikely that humans would have been able to see the sea monster often. One could try to escape from the ancient Sarcosuchus crocodile, but running would not save you from Quetzalcoatlus. You'd have to engage in combat. It looks like the same pterodactyl, but it has one big difference: their size. The wingspan of this bird reached about 50 feet, which is almost twice that of a large pterodactyl. This allowed Quetzalcoatlus to reach unbelievable speeds, which guaranteed its success in the pursuit of prey. In history, it's known as the largest flying animal, along with Eramborgiania and Hatsugopetrix. Leopleurodon. Leopleurodon is one of the most fearsome predators of the Jurassic period. It was first known in 1873 when 3 teeth were found in France, each of which was almost 4 inches long. Plesiosaurs, of which Leopleurodon was a classic example, roamed the world ocean during the Jurassic period, just as sharks now inhabit our oceans. Leopleurodon was about 23 feet long and weighed more than 2,200 pounds. With its 4 wide, flat, long flippers, Leopleurodon could swim considerable distances, which was essential for hunting purposes. It was also able to accelerate quickly in pursuit of prey when circumstances demanded it. Its main diet consisted of large fish, mollusks, marine reptiles, and even sharks. These fish breathed air through their mouths like land animals, so from time to time they had to swim to the surface to catch their breath. Leopleurodon are thought to have lived mainly in the seas of Europe and South America, as their fossils have been found in these parts of the world. Basilosaurus. This sea giant, which name translates from ancient Greek as king lizard, is actually an ancient whale that lived 45 to 36 million years ago. In appearance, however, it looked more like a cross between a giant snake and a crocodile. It also had an elongated snout with a toothy mouth and a long body that reached about 70 feet in males and 60 feet in females. Because of its unusual anatomy, Basilosaurus moved through the water with a wave-like motion, like an eel, only in the vertical plane. One more interesting feature of these predators is their rudimentary hind legs, which were about 24 inches long. Interestingly, the skeleton of this ancient monster was the key to unraveling the appearance of mammals in the water. Thanks to the rudimentary legs, scientists realized that after mammals appeared on land, one branch of evolution took its representatives back to the ocean, resulting in today's whales. Basilosaurus are proof of this theory, which confirms the theory of evolution by adding the missing piece to the puzzle. Unlike their modern congeners, Basilosaurus could not boast echolocation organs. These predators were found in nearly all of the Earth's warm seas and hunted on large prey, including other whales. Some cryptozoologists believe that small populations of these animals may still exist today, and that this particular whale is mistaken by eyewitnesses for a sea serpent. However, science knows no fossil remains of Basilosaurus younger than 37 million years. And from the point of view of paleontologists, this hypothesis raises questions. Paraceratherium. Paraceratherium is an extinct species of hornless rhinos. It's the largest land mammal that existed and lived 30 to 20 million years ago. The first fossils were found in what is now Pakistan, and remains have been found throughout Eurasia and China and the Balkans. The exact size of Paraceratherium is unknown due to the incompleteness of the fossils. Paraceratherium is presumed to have been about 25 feet long and to have weighed between 33,000 and 44,000 pounds. Either way, it's the tallest and heaviest land mammal that ever existed. Its lifestyle may have been similar to that of modern large mammals such as elephants or rhinos. Because of its size, it had virtually no enemies, and Paraceratherium itself fed mostly on leaves, soft plants, and shrubs, so it's not surprising that the ancient rhino had no horn. By the way, it's an interesting fact that the look of the Empire's walking war machines, AT-AT, from the Star Wars movie saga was inspired by the look and biomechanics of Paraceratherium. Such is the contribution to culture made by these ancient giants. Bloop. Let's return to the protagonist of the episode. Although it seems obvious that Megalodon could not have survived to the present day, videos claiming to show this ancient shark appear on the internet time and again. But what if there was something at the bottom of the ocean? Jacques Cousteau, the famous explorer of the ocean, once, during an expedition, noticed a strange, huge creature which was tens of meters in size. Another famous traveler, Thor Heyerdahl, told the story of how one night he was in a submarine off the coast of Peru and at great depths heard a strange and terrifying hum. Thor woke up and saw something glowing and huge floating past the submarine. None of the eyewitnesses were able to distinguish the monster, but the general description is this: a huge creature about 1,000 feet long. It makes an extremely creepy sound, and its body glows a little. It's possible that this creature is Bloop. So they called the sound recorded several times by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the summer of 1997. The strange hum, described by both Cousteau and Heyerdahl, was similar to what was recorded by hydrophones. Here's the result. This gurgling was heard at a great depth. It's very similar to the sound that whales make, but no whale could have been the source of such a loud and booming sound. At this time, there's no evidence that this sound was made by a living creature, but at the same time, there are no other elaborate explanations either. Most people knowing about this mystery agreed that some huge monster exists, and it's only a matter of time for us to find it. You'll be surprised, but even Megalodon was not devoid of fear and was afraid of some creatures. Next, I'll tell you about the sharks that Megalodon was afraid of, as well as a few creatures that could fight it off. The creature that will be discussed now has an interesting name. It's consonant with the pseudonym of the villain from the first parts of Spider-Man movies. Hint, the name begins with the word green. He flew and threw bombs. Yeah, of course, you thought right. I mean goblin. Shark, on the other hand, got such an unusual name for its ridiculous appearance. It is, to say the least, those pinkish colors on the snout are directly related to the shark's large number of blood vessels. Well, the rest is just a figment of nature's imagination. Fishermen were lucky enough to catch this creature in the 1980s. People were shocked to encounter this monster of the deep. The creature was first handed over to scientists for detailed study. Nevertheless, it was never possible to learn anything for sure about the entire genus of these sharks. Too few individuals were caught by humans. It's known that these sharks can grow up to almost 13 feet in length and weigh more than 440 pounds. The main feature of this fish is its liver. The liver, by the way, weighs a quarter of the total body weight of the fish. In the goblin, this is not a simple organ. It stores nutrients, which helps the shark to live a long time without food. Even 2 or 3 weeks of starvation will not deprive it of all its strength. Another important function of the liver is to replace the swim bladder. Although, if I could give hints, I would definitely advise the goblin shark not to be afraid of anyone and to swim out to hunt at any time of the day or night. Would any creature dare attack this monster in the literal sense of the word? I think even Megalodon was uncomfortable with the sight of such a shark. And it's true, because the goblin shark has existed on our planet for 125 million years, which means that it managed to frighten even the huge Megalodon shark more than once. Leviathan. And this, my friends, seems to be a creature that, in its power and bloodthirstiness, would give even Megalodon a head start. Don't believe me? Well then listen about Leviathan. Let's start with the first find pertaining to this creature. It was a skull found in Peru. The skull was 10 feet long, and that's not much, but the power of this fish is something else entirely. The dominance that this fish had many millions of years ago, Leviathan got because of all sorts of tricks in its structure. For example, Leviathan's super powerful jaw with simply anomalous teeth helped it destroy any prey that it wanted. They're one of the largest among vertebrates. The upper fangs of Leviathan reached almost 14 inches in length and 5 inches in diameter. Just imagine that tooth, and then imagine an entire jaw of such sharp daggers. You might say, but you can't surprise anyone with just teeth. What's the use of them? And I'll tell you, as a gift from nature, this fish received a very strong temporal muscle. In mammals, it's responsible for the power of biting. So Leviathan easily tore off whole pieces from the still alive prey. Here you'll ask a counter question. What's the use of Leviathan biting so hard? It simply can't catch up with Megalodon and take it by surprise. Rather, the giant shark will attack from somewhere unexpected and swallow Leviathan. It would be like that if not for the organ that helped Leviathan navigate in space. A giant spermaceti organ which perceived sound signals as a radar helped the animal in this. By the way, one more interesting fact is because of the spermaceti organ, the head of Leviathan looks simply gigantic and even ridiculous. The fish could ram any target with it and still feel normal. For several millions of years, this monster swam the seas and oceans and didn't let anyone live in peace. Only natural changes, more precisely changes in climate, have calmed Leviathan down. Global cooling has sharply affected the ocean currents, which in turn upset the balance of plankton and krill, the main prey of baleen whales. Now, this entire micro-organic crowd lived near the poles, so the baleen whales had to migrate after them. Well, those whales that remained in the warm tropical seas were to die out due to starvation. Leviathan simply had nothing to eat because all the baleen whales at the equator were extinct. And if its congener, the sperm whale, is adapted to hunting giant squids on the depths where the temperature is always more or less stable, then Leviathan, that intimidated everybody on the surface, was left alone with small fish. But alas, they couldn't feed Leviathan, which weighed several tens of tons. Since I mentioned sperm whales, I suggest we look at them, because these creatures also definitely deserve attention. The fact is that these creatures have literally no equal on Earth nowadays in terms of their unique body structure. When you see these creatures, you inadvertently think, what if the sperm whale is not from our planet at all? What if it was put here by aliens? What's more, the sperm whale behaves differently all the time. Sometimes it may behave like it was a knight in the past life that honored laws and rules. At other times, the alien creature may massacre everything indiscriminately and not even succumb to the slightest bit of doubt. But let's go everything in order. Let's start with a description of the creature. The average length of the males is 66 feet, and the females are about 36 feet long. They can weigh up to 70 and 30 tons respectively. This is the first difference from most creatures, as almost always the female is larger than the male. But this is only the tip of the sperm whale's life. It also has an intestine which is 525 feet long. And why, one may ask, is it so large? Even scientists still can't give a definite answer. Intestine, by the way, is not the only organ that differs from other creatures. The sperm whale also has non-standard lungs. They're 2 times smaller than those of older whales. Until now, scientists are not quite clear where it gets so much air to stay underwater for hours. The brain of the sperm whale is the largest in the entire animal world, yet it's only a few times larger than the human brain. And the brain is in the head, which is a third of the entire huge body. Why is it so huge? As for the jaws, the lower jaw is much shorter and smaller than the upper one, which is completely fused with the head. The lower jaw contains 18 to 30 pairs of conical teeth. The weight of each of them is about 2 pounds. And it would be okay, it's a carnivore and seems to need teeth, but the thing is that the sperm whale practically doesn't use them. It just sucks up its prey and that's all. At the same time, its mouth opens 90 degrees. Speaking of prey, anyone can be it. After all, the giant needs to eat about a ton of food a day. From the creature that lives in our modern oceans, I propose to go to a much more ancient but no less dangerous and interesting creature, Mosasaurus huffmani. In brief, it was a widespread and very successful marine predator which appeared about 70 million years ago. For the average person, it may be a revelation that this more than 46-foot-long sea monster was actually a lizard, but not a simple one. It was a much more advanced and intelligent lizard. This so-called advanced lizard bore many similarities to whales. It ate everything it could get its hands on. The main thing was that its prey was big enough to make up for the lizard's energy expenditure on the hunt. Speaking of hunting, Mosasaurus huffmani preferred the following method. It would hide in the depths and wait for the right moment until the prey was above it. As soon as the right moment came, Mosasaurus huffmani rushed upwards and rammed its potential prey, stunning it and trapping it with its powerful jaws, thus depriving it of the ability to move. And then it was a matter of technique. And considering the size of Mosasaurus huffmani, 49 to 56 feet in length and weighing about 15 tons, it was almost always possible to ram the prey. The force of the blow was colossal. Basilosaurus. Next, we have another creature that has the saurus suffix in its name. You might ask the logical question, why is it a saurus? Were they dinosaurs? And indeed, the creature received such a name by mistake. The fact is that when its skeleton was first found, scientists identified Basilosaurus to dinosaurs because of the large number of finds. They thought such a giant couldn't swim somewhere underwater. Some time passed and the scientists realized that their colleagues were wrong, and before them was still a whale. Then the animal was given another name, Zeuglodon, which translates as whale-like yolk teeth. Fun fact, people have not been properly engaged in the search of the remains of this creature. Its bones washed up ashore on their own. Curiously enough, without giving them much importance, people began to use these bones in the construction of furniture. Just imagine, today there's a piece of Basilosaurus in some locker, and 40 million years ago, it was the largest predator of all living then. Because of its long vertebrae, its body was about 59 to 69 feet long. Wiggling like a snake in the water, this giant easily caught up with its prey, large fish, sharks, and even whales. And here's another interesting fact about this creature. Basilosaurus had what's called hind limbs. They were small and weak, used by the creature only for mating. But that was not their essence and significance for humans. It was these limbs that became the first in the history of irrefutable evidence of kinship between modern whales and their ungulate ancestors. Everyone knows that fish are aquatic creatures. But have you heard of land fish? They hunt birds and aren't shy about getting out of their bodies of water. Next, I'll show you the predatory fish that even land animals are afraid of, archerfish. Take a look at these cute little fish. They look like the typical aquarium beauties. In fact, many people keep them in their homes. Archerfish are beautiful and small fish, but they also have a dark side. They are first-rate and very unusual hunters. Although archerfish are not considered typical predators, they are the real predatory creatures in their type of feeding and hunting. They love terrestrial invertebrates, fish, but their favorite delicacy is insects, which are afraid of archerfish. Archerfish literally shoot their victims right out of the water. The fish draws water into its mouth, takes aim, and almost always clearly hits its target. The water shot can be made from a distance of 6.5 feet. That's quite a shot. Crocodile. Silver arowana. South America is full of amazing fish. Piranhas, for example, are a sight to behold. Piranhas have cool neighbors, silver arowanas. They're cool because they can jump out of the water to a height of up to 6.5 feet and catch land animals. The attack is so fast that the prey doesn't have time to understand anything. By nature, the silver arowana is a ruthless predator. It's completely indiscriminate in food, which means that it can pounce on anyone. Scientists have found that in addition to aquatic inhabitants, the silver arowana eats insects, spiders, crabs, frogs, as well as small animals of the Amazon region. Even snakes and birds have been found in the stomachs of the silver arowana. No wonder the locals call the silver arowanas water monkeys. It seems that these creatures are much more comfortable on land than in water. The same can be said about some other fish. There are some fish in the world that seem to be completely bored with water, so they often chill on land, climb trees, and even imagine themselves to be birds. Stay tuned to see all these amazing creatures that'll impress you. Mud skippers. Outwardly, the mud skipper looks something like a frog. Well, at least it seems that way to me. Apparently, it wants to become an amphibian just like a frog, or the mud skipper aspires to evolve into a full-fledged land animal at all. How else to explain its great love for the land? As a sea fish with fins, gills, and tail, the mud skipper quietly makes its way to the surface. On the wet mud, these unique fish find insects and crustaceans, which they feed on. Their special respiratory system allows them not to suffocate. The mud skipper consumes oxygen through the skin. It can live on land forever, but its skin is too delicate and needs constant moisture. The mud skipper has also one thing in common with land animals, and this is its limbs. Well, at least with pain and misery. The pectoral fins on this fish resemble hands. With their help, the mud skipper moves, and during the tide it can even climb trees and branches. They even dig burrows on land. Then they fill the burrow with water and rest on their favorite land, knowing that they will not be carried away by the surf or tide, and that they'll not be found by birds or prey. All in all, these guys are almost 100% ready for their final move to dry land. Well, some fish think of themselves as frogs, others dream of turning into birds. Flying fish are called flying for a reason. Members of this family of marine fish have unusually large pectoral fins that allow the fish to leap out of the water and perform a gliding flight. In fact, flying fish don't do this kind of flying for the sake of showing off. Basically, they jump out of the water in case of danger when a predator tries to approach them. However, sometimes they do show off, jumping out of the water for no reason. Not only the flight itself is impressive, but also its power. Flying fish can jump to a distance of 16 feet above water surface and fly for about 160 feet. And in some conditions, the flight range can increase to as much as 1,300 feet. No predator will chase this incredible fish after this. Firstly, a predator will simply lose sight of it, and secondly, it will respect such skills. We already had the mud skipper. There's one more leaping creature in this episode. The leaping blenny, also known as the jumping blenny, or Alticus saliens. It's found in the Indo-Pacific region. Mostly the leaping blenny can be seen in the coastal shallows of intertidal zones. The fish is nimble in jumping on rocks and clinging to rocks. Being out of water, the leaping blenny is able to breathe atmospheric air. By the way, its relatives from the Alticus genus are no worse. For example, Alticus arnoldorum, or the Pacific leaping blenny, spends almost its adult life on land, eating algae growing on coastal rocks. The fish has a coloration that allows it to blend in with the rocks and not attract the attention of natural enemies. In general, it feels even better on land than in water. However, this fish cannot live completely without water. Just like the mud skipper, it needs to moisten its skin, which plays the role of a breathing organ. If the fish misses the moistening procedure, it can die. Giant trevally. All the fish I've already shown today were quite small, so the giant trevally clearly stands out from them. This is indeed a giant. Its length is over 3.9 feet, and the weight can reach 66, 80, or even 132 pounds. It's not surprising that the giant trevally is a coveted target of many fishermen and participants in sports fishing. In between escapes from fishermen and their nets, giant trevally strike fear into its habitat neighbors. The diet of the giant trevally is very diverse. It includes both sea creatures and birds. Now without reason, the giant trevally makes it into this episode of fish that do not sit still in the water. The giant trevally loves to hunt birds, and it does it very skillfully. It tracks down its prey, assesses it, estimates its weight, and makes calculations. Only after that it flies out of the water, soars into the air, and catches the bird. In most cases, the hunt ends successfully. And if these fish gather in schools and hunt together, the chances grow to almost 100%. Low-flying birds have a hard time. African lungfish. If giant trevallies are adored by fishermen, then African lungfish are loved by real aborigines, the African natives. When there's a drought, the lungfish chooses a suitable place and digs a burrow. Usually, African lungfish choose a place among dense vegetation as a temporary home. African lungfish dig a hole for a reason. They're preparing for hibernation. If the mangrove rivulis is able to be out of water and lead an active life, then the African lungfish requires a temporary deep sleep. When the water level is 3.9 inches, a large African lungfish burrows into the ground. A small African lungfish hides in the mud when the water level is 1.1 inches. During hibernation, the African lungfish breathes through its lungs like any lungfish creature. It is a sort of double breathing system. Do you still remember that African lungfish are loved by the natives? Well, they seek out African lungfish and dig them up for tasty meat. They dig out the sleeping African lungfish together with pieces of ground, which are almost as hard as stones when the water bodies become dry. Surprisingly, this hard stone is a real fish. African lungfish get soaked when the rainy season begins. The water level in water bodies rises. African lungfish come out of hibernation and return to the water. Sometimes there are fish in the rivers that pose a danger, not only to their relatives but also to humans. All details are further. Electric eel. Do you guys happen to have a power bank? Because we're right in the middle of the Amazon River and I really want to take a picture of this beauty. Oh, I think I have an idea. We should swim up to the shore and get some power from that fish over there. There really are a lot of legends and speculation surrounding this fish. The main misconception is that the electric eel is not really the eel, rather it belongs to the catfish group. In fact, these creatures are called differently: the gymnotiforms or the South American knifefish. For a long time, it was believed that the electric eel is the only species in the Amazon, but recently curious ichthyologists began to compare the structure of the head of the fish, studied their genotype, and found that there are in fact as many as 3 species of electric eels. They differ from each other not only in appearance but also in voltage. The weakest one can give up to 400 volts, which is about 8 times the fatal voltage for humans. The other 2 types give 600 and 800 volts respectively. And yes, like you, I too have already imagined this creature swimming through the waters of the Amazon River, electrocuting everyone left and right, and generally causing total chaos. But the electric eel is too lazy for that kind of epic. Its maximum is to swim up, feeling hungry, deliver 3 to 4 discharges in the area with small fish, stun them, and swimming closer, suck up the prey. Well, and then the eel goes back to sleep again. This creature cannot be said to be friends with a human. Lethal outcome can occur, but only if the human has a weak heart. Otherwise, it's possible to survive. But young caimans and anacondas are the ones that the electric eel can kill with pleasure. However, only mature fish with a length of 5 to 6.5 feet and weighing about 44 pounds can do this. Moreover, the lion's share of the weight is made up by the organs that generate the discharge. These, by the way, are nothing more than modified muscle cells. By the way, electric eels attack in a rather curious way. They do not adhere to the tactics of defense, but on the contrary, they jump towards the adventure, trying to press against the offender or a possible prey with their whole body. In this way, the eels are able to kick it as much as possible with all their cells. Speaking of electrocution, did you know that electric eels don't just do that during an attack or defense? These very discharges also help them navigate their way around. The fish shoots around itself with discharges of 10 volts and makes up for itself a 3D picture of the surrounding world. Goliath tigerfish. One of the most unusual freshwater fish, a real river monster, the mere sight of which gives many people chills. The scientific name of the fish, Goliath, in Latin means giant water dog. The name alone doesn't bode well. Nevertheless, for some reason, people try to catch this creature from shallow rivers or bodies of water in Africa. Due to its powerful physique, the Goliath tigerfish can swim even against the current, making it a real challenge for the best fishermen to catch it. This tigerfish makes such commotion because it devours literally everything it comes across. Small fish are eaten by the monster just like this in one sitting. With bigger prey, it'll have to tinker a little and only then eat it. But if you think people are safe because they don't swim underwater, you're dead wrong. Somehow this fish ate over 300 birds in 2 weeks. Researchers watched it and came to that conclusion. What else they found out is that even a crocodile would not become a nuisance to the Goliath tigerfish. When hungry, the fish can attack it. Believe me, if necessary, the Goliath tigerfish would even devour a human in just a minute. The stamina of the Goliath tigerfish also adds fuel to the fire. If the fish has trouble breathing underwater, it can inhale oxygen from the surface. The main paradox is that while it devours everything in sight, humans can't eat it. It's simply not edible. So the desperate fishermen who catches them do so only to satisfy their own egos, but nothing more. Red-bellied piranha. It sounds like there are many dangerous piranhas in the world, but the red-bellied piranha is definitely not one of them. It's exactly the opposite. All the notoriety of these fish came from red-bellied piranhas. Basically, their danger lies in the presence of a large mouth with protruding, sharp teeth. They're very tightly closed, so the piranhas do not bite the food but literally cut it like a razor. Usually, the jaws of piranhas are compared to well-sharpened scissors. The second important feature of these fish is their accurate, literally perfect teamwork. Thanks to it, during the attacks, these fish take turns inflicting painful bites which together do not allow the prey to move or resist. Because of these tactics, piranhas only need a few minutes to get to their prey's bones. But don't think that red-bellied piranhas eat only large representatives of fauna. Due to the fact that there are not so many large inhabitants in the murky waters of the Amazon River, these predatory fish usually feed on carrion. Just as wolves can be called the sanitarians of the forest, so piranhas can rightly be called the sanitarians of the Amazon. They timely clean the water from the dead bodies that have fallen into it so that they don't emit poisonous substances. However, this doesn't mean that the fish have no desire to eat something larger, something alive. Just a few drops of blood immediately trigger the piranha's phenomenal sense of smell, and they move out to hunt. Candiru. The size of this fish is considerably inferior to the other representatives of today's episode. It doesn't have long teeth, a powerful body, or the ability to shock. But then why is Candiru here? Actually, it's simple. It's the only vertebrate in the world that can parasitize on humans. This creature feeds mainly on blood, and the small size just plays into its hands and allows it to easily penetrate into the genitals or the anus of the person. Once at the source of feeding, Candiru doesn't hurry anywhere and continues to sit there, feeding on flesh. It's impossible to remove such a disgusting monster personally. To do so, you'll definitely have to call for help from surgeons. So if any of you happen to find yourself in the Amazon basin, be careful and try to look around. After all, the so-called Brazilian vampire fish can parasitize on the person until their death. Payara. Here's another fish that's not strikingly large. Yes, it's certainly larger than the Brazilian vampire, but still. The main danger of the creature lurks in its teeth. They're sharp as blades, growing from the lower jaw of the fish. The teeth of the payara are certainly its main weapon, but it's not the only one. No less spectacular feature of the fish is its ability to jump high. At the same time, the payara swims very fast and has impressive power. Small at first sight, the fish can actually weigh up to 44 pounds. It's found in the headquarters of the Paragu River, the Churan River, and other rivers in the Orinoco Basin in Venezuela. The payara is able to deal even with piranhas. Although this species is known for its terrifying fangs, they also have sharp, spike-like teeth around the perimeter of their mouth. The payara fangs reach 4 to 6 inches in length. They're so dangerous that on the upper jaw there are 2 small holes where these fangs, as if drive in when the fish closes its mouth so as to not hurt itself. Are piranhas considered to be the most dangerous river fish? Let's find out if they are. Further, I'll tell you what these toothy creatures are capable of. What if you throw a live crucian carp to piranhas? According to an online etymological dictionary, the original name of the piranha was piranha, or biting fish, as it was called by the aborigines of the indigenous Tupi people living in the territory of modern Brazil. And indeed, everyone knows that these fish have sharp teeth and the ability to easily kill their prey. But have you ever seen how the hunting process takes place? If not, the following footage will amaze you. A blogger decided to conduct an experiment. He decided to throw a live crucian carp into a tank with piranhas. The author wanted to show how dangerous these hungry fish can be. As soon as the crucian carp appeared in the aquarium, the pursuit began. At first, the piranhas simply chased the fish, not giving it a free space. Then, after a while, the school of fish went into the offensive and started biting off the scales little by little. Obviously, the crucian carp had no chance against the school of piranhas. Little by little, the fish began to nibble their prey, and after a while, there was no tail left of it. Well, this is the law of nature, survival of the fittest. Fish is an important source of food for many piranhas, but it's worth noting that the victim of piranhas does not always die. Opportunistic piranhas make do with the fin or scales of those that escaped, and some species specialize in eating scales, having adapted to eat mostly scales of other fish. Scale eating, also known as lepidophagy, has evolved independently in several fish lineages. It's reported to be more common among young piranhas, although some species remain focused on scales as adults, often using special hunting techniques. The wimple piranha, for example, uses an open-mouth ramming attack, biting on impact to remove scales with its teeth while knocking them out with the force of its collision. What happens if you fall into a piranha pool? If we were to conduct a survey of which fish are the most dangerous on Earth, the piranha would probably be among the winners. Despite the rather small size of the fish itself, in a matter of minutes a school of piranhas will leave only a skeleton from a person caught in the water. At least, that's what happens in various horror movies and horror books. But is it really so? Is piranha really an extremely aggressive creature which attacks everything that moves in water? It may sound unexpected, but piranha is a very cautious fish and poses almost no danger to humans. There are many testimonies when a person swam in piranha-infested water without any harm to their health. This was fully demonstrated by Herbert Axeldorf, the famous biologist who specialized in the study of tropical fish. To prove the safety of piranhas for humans, Herbert filled a small pool with piranhas and dove into it, having only his swimming trunks on. After swimming for some time among the predatory fish and suffering no harm to his health, Herbert took the fresh, blood-soaked meat in his hand and continued to swim with it. Several dozen of the piranhas in the pool still didn't approach the man, although not long ago they gladly ate the same meat when no one was in the pool. Piranhas, considered fearsome predators with gluttony for fresh flesh, are in fact quite timid fish that do not dare to approach large creatures. It's known that piranhas prefer to stay in large schools, and if you see one piranha in the water, others are sure to be present nearby. But piranhas do this not because it's easier for a school of predatory fish to kill and eat their prey, but because piranhas themselves are a link in the food chain for other larger fish species. It makes sense because if a fish is in a school of dozens of individuals, the chance that it will be eaten is reduced. Moreover, experiments with piranhas have shown that when they're alone, these fish do not feel as calm as they would if they were surrounded by other fish. But despite their peaceful behavior towards humans, piranhas are real fear machines for other fish species that stand below them on the food chain. Their powerful jaws are designed to bite and tear, and their dense muscular bodies are capable of incredibly fast movements underwater. It's believed that piranhas have the highest compression force of their jaw muscles relative to their body size compared to any other animal in the world. An ordinary piranha can even bite off an adult's finger. So still, these fish are not that safe for humans. Nevertheless, not a single credible case of piranha attacks on humans with a fatal outcome has been recorded in history. Despite the stereotype of bloodthirsty predators, piranhas are classified as omnivores because most species eat at least some plant material, and some may even be vegetarians. The red piranha, for example, is widely known as a ferocious predator, but it's actually an omnivorous gatherer and scavenger, eating fish, insects, crustaceans, snails, and plants. The fact that piranhas are dangerous predators with sharp teeth was known to all of you. Now you've seen that piranhas are at least not very dangerous to humans, and that pop culture has greatly exaggerated their abilities. That's not all there is to say about piranhas. Did you know, for example, that they can caw and make rumbling noises? Stay tuned to hear the voice of piranhas and learn even more interesting facts about these unusual fish. Piranhas make sounds. Some piranhas make noises when handled. Red piranhas, for example, caw in the hands of fishermen who catch them. Little was known about these sounds until recently, when researchers discovered that piranhas can make 3 different sounds, each for different situations. As part of the work, scientists recorded sounds in the aquarium where the fish were kept. As it turned out, the fish make noise mostly during confrontations and remain silent at other times. Scientists were also able to identify a set of sounds that fish use to communicate. For example, during fights over food, they made a low sound similar to the beat of a drum. During other confrontations, for example when one fish swam too close to the other, the piranhas would caw. Researchers suspect this is a sign of a more aggressive mood. Scientists have also been able to determine the mechanism behind the sounds. A key role in their formation is played by the air bladder, which the fish's muscles make sharply contract. As shown by computer modeling, the type of sound is determined by the speed and strength of muscle contraction and stops when they relax. Thus, piranhas have full control over their own voice. Caw and humming are produced by the piranha's air bladder, and the third sound is produced by the grinding of teeth during the chase. Piranha jaws. Let's take another look at the teeth of piranhas. Although piranhas are not the vicious monsters portrayed in the movies, they are very strong biters for their size. According to a 2012 study, one of the largest modern species, the red-eye piranha, has a bite force of 320 newtons. The author of the study wrote that this is the strongest bite force recorded to date in fish relative to their own size, noting that it's nearly 3 times the bite force of a similar-sized American alligator. In addition, the jaws of these river predators are very unusually designed. When they slam shut, the sharp diamond-shaped upper and lower teeth close completely, leaving no gap. This allows piranhas to literally cut a piece of flesh out of their prey's body effortlessly. The benefits of piranhas. Piranhas are not top predators that we imagine them to be, but they still play a valuable role in their natural ecosystem as mesopredators, scavengers, and prey. They're widely distributed over a large area of South America, giving them broad ecological influence. By actively hunting and scavenging in their habitat, piranhas help shape the local distribution and composition of fish, as well as other wildlife. And because they're relatively small, they're also an important food source for other animals, such as herons and cormorants. That's it for today. What from this episode struck you the most? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.